Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Eric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
This episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess is sponsored by the children's book Feathers Matter. As our kids grow up, they face challenges in their life, and knowing their self-worth and their value is crucial to face the headwinds. Purchase this beautiful story to read to your kids and grandkids and start the conversation with them at a young age. They are worthy, they matter, and their feathers matter. You can find the link to order on our Blended, Blessed, alwaysamess.com page. Mention code #blessed for an autographed copy. Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And the first thing I have to point out is, honey, your microphone color matches your shirt.
I know.
Wow.
It's high tech over here. High tech.
That's impressive. Like I looked down, I was like, "Ooh, her microphone is blending in with this sweater or whatever it is you got going on."
You gotta up your game.
That's pretty impressive. Wednesday night. So here we go again on our date night. I don't know. That didn't work so well. But date night, which means podcast time. So kind of going to be a hodgepodge of topics that we cover. But 2 weeks ago, we did a podcast on communication struggles that everybody has. And you guys really received that one well. We heard from so many folks when it came to communication. You're grinning. Why is that?
Because what the feedback was mostly was the appreciation that we're raw, honest, vulnerable, but also I think most people could either they felt more connected with me and my side of things, or they could see themselves in you. So it definitely, I think, allowed people to go, "Oh God, so I'm not the only one that struggles with that."
Yeah, it was either that or they were like, "Ha, look at them. They're struggling with communication." So joke's on you. We're continuously working on our communication in a lot of different ways. And so with that being said, kind of a deep dive into what happened after we released that episode a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so it dropped on Sunday, and then I think it was Monday, like the next day, we happened to have a therapy appointment. It kind of felt like we were in timeout a little bit because we were in there. And so our therapist was like, "So I listened to your podcast." Like, uh-oh. But I think the reality...
She's positive.
Yes, no, she's extremely helpful, or we wouldn't keep going to her. And obviously, we have things to work out. I mean, that, if you listen to the podcast and thought we had it figured out, then you didn't hear us very well, because, there's definitely some things where we know that we're missing each other on it. And I think the reality of it is, like we talked about, Eric's got particular needs that he's wanting to get out of the relationship, and I do too. The challenge is what we need from each other contradicts each other in a lot of ways. Like we currently, right. So then how do you navigate that? What do you do with that? And, some of it I think is hard to say out loud even, and trying to navigate this and talking about how you feel. I think my stance on it, my take on it is, although the conversations are really hard to have, sometimes it feels easier to just like bury it deep and not work through it and just overlook it. But then when you do that, you build up resentment for each other. So
you lose trust then. That's an area, as I've studied on this, is when you bury things, that resentment comes and you do start to lose trust in the other person at that point.
Definitely. And so I think the thing everybody wants to know is like, okay, we've established that. Now, what do we actually do? And I think we always go in circles with each other in a lot of ways of like this comparison game to what it used to be like. And then this acceptance mode of it's not going to be like that again, probably because we're different people. I'm a different person. Okay. And then we keep butting up against each other. We're not meeting each other's needs. So one of the things that she suggested is reading this book that I think the title of it, isn't it like How to Suck It Up and Get Through It? It's something like that, isn't it?
Clearly that is not the book that our therapist recommended. No.
It feels that way.
But you can see the uphill battle that I'm fighting here. No, it was John Gottman, who is just for years, he's the guy that like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I mean, he just studies married couples. And so she encouraged us to read The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work.
Same title. I was close.
And there are like projects in that to work through as a couple. And I think they're super fun and engaging as we've started into this process. I'm actually hoping that after we get done tonight, we're going to like go through some of those. Because I thought as I'm, going through the book, I even said to you the other night on the couch, I'm like, there's no way that if you didn't follow these steps of his step by step, that you and I would not be in a great spot when we finish this book. Because you have to look at things. He looks at things very scientifically. He has what he calls a love lab out in Seattle, and people come to it. It's like a studio apartment, and he studies, like he puts like monitors on them so that he can know what their heart is doing during conversation, during interactions. I mean, the only places that are not mic'd up are like the actual where the bed is at in the bathroom. Like, so there's no footage.
Well, thank God.
Of that.
God.
But everything else, he's monitoring. And he can predict within like 90% accuracy if a couple is going to stay married or get divorced. So it is really cool. And I've really enjoyed the book so far. How about you?
Yeah, you're a little bit further along than I am. I think it's really kind of funny because the first part that I listened to, he talked about how he can predict if a couple's going to get divorced, if they're going to make it. And a lot of it is around the general sentiment that they have for each other. And just the difference between Aric. Sorry.
I just want to point out before you go into this, like when these are done, all right, and all of you women reach out to Angie, like, oh, Angie, blah, blah, blah. I hear from 1 or 2 of our listeners, and we immediately had like over 500 downloads this podcast, and she's getting blown up. Oh my gosh. And I get like 1 or 2. That's like, oh, I can relate to you. And it's like, so really, I'm lonely loser guy over here in the corner.
Here we go.
But
this is when 80% of our listeners are going to roll their eyes. So
that's supposed to be entertainment purposes. All right.
Okay. So,
but what did you say?
Serious or
what did you say?
No, I listened to the first part of it where he was talking about predicting if people are going to get divorced. And I'm like listening to all these stories and I'm like, shit, we're doing good. Because half of the stuff he listed out, I'm like, that's not even us. Like, we're genuinely trying to work through it. And,
I would agree with that.
And we're not, I mean, yes, we have challenges. Every relationship does. But I'm listening to it going, oh, God, we're not doing any of that stuff to each other type of thing. And Aric listens to it and he comes in. I mean, his eyes were about this big after he listened to it and was like, oh my God, we have serious problems that we have to work out.
I think I said we have things we need to work on.
But you were a little bit freaked out.
Yeah. And I think that just goes back to the different places that we're at as far as this goes. And for you, we have covered this for 6 months on this podcast. I know it's been 6 months because your mom even brought it up to me while we were walking on our family trip in July. And I've had a couple other listeners like, are you okay? Because Angie will say, Aric's married to a dead person.
Yeah.
Like, so he's given like 100, 110%. And I'm like dead, 0, 5%, -5%. Pick the day. That's the percentage that she gives me. Fair.
Yeah.
I do not want to put words in your mouth.
I think 10%.
Okay. So when you have two people efforting in a marriage at different degrees like that, you would listen or read the book and be like, oh, this does hit me.
But
Where to Angie, it's like, it's fine. We're good.
also, he's not covering scenarios where someone's lost a child. So let's just
Also fair.
level the playing field a little bit. These are couples that would have been us prior to the death of a child.
Right.
So,
and at that point, we're thriving. If we're going to go back to that point.
That's the lens I look through. I'm looking through the lens of everything that has transpired. And we have date nights on Wednesday night and we're like working together. And yes, we have challenges, but like, I also feel like we're in it. So it's just an interesting perspective to your point of how different we feel of how we would grade ourselves.
Yes. But when we listen to both of us, the basis for like, if you're still in a healthy marriage or not, our overall health assessment was good. We both felt. I mean, looking at it, okay. We have communication issues, as we've clearly defined.
Yeah.
If we can work through the communication issues, the base parts of our love and our marriage, those are good. So it really is how do we work better together to communicate better together and go through that process.
And I think the first step of like what we're on, and we'll keep sharing as we navigate this book and do the workshops or the workbook type of assignments, but it's really trying to get to know this new person, not like who we were, but who's this new person, and almost like starting the friendship through that lens type of thing. So more to come.
If you focus on the fact that you're married to a dead person, it doesn't go really well. So you have to figure out like, okay, how can I fall in love with this dead person? Okay, and that's really when I just you rephrasing your words, and I'm trying to find. I've been positively spinning since I started reading the book, and another book I'm reading about being a disciple of Jesus is that I get to learn to love this version of you. So that's where we're at, and I think you get to love this version of me, who I feel like, knock on wood, is pretty decent these days. Knock on wood.
Yeah, you're putting in some serious work. And I think
as Summer would say, when we first started dating 5 years ago now, 5 years this week, and she would have been 10. She was just getting ready to turn 10, I feel like. No, they're getting ready to turn 11.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah, they're getting ready to turn 11. So she was 10, and she used to say, your voices, they're so much younger at 10. And she would do something and she'd be like, not to toot my own horn, but toot, toot.
Right.
She did that all the time.
Yeah.
It used to make me laugh. It used to make me just die laughing.
Hilarious child. So I think we haven't done just a general life update in a while, and we've had a lot of things kind of going on and coming up. So I thought maybe the rest of the episode we would just dive into things that we've done. And like, for instance, a couple weeks ago when we thought that we would go see a rom-com. We had a little time to kill. We were at a football game and the kids had stuff to do after the football game before we went home. So we kind of had time to kill. And Eric suggests that we go see this movie that was a rom-com.
Well, no, time out. I did not see it. I'd never heard of this movie. We were around your sisters.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
you're right.
Don't you put this on evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Okay. This was not an error. I was like, we can go see Deadpool and Wolverine. And you were like, no. And your sisters.
Yeah, both of them were standing there.
Oh my God. You have to go see It Ends With Us. It's amazing. You're going to love it. And I think your friend Jenny was like, oh, I took my daughter. You're going to love it.
Yeah, they never said it was a rom-com. We made that assumption because I have heard a lot of people say that the movie was good, but we're so clueless on like movies and shows and what's trending, and never read the book. So we had no idea that this movie was heavy as shit.
Heavy.
That's when I ate my whole box of Raisinets.
You did.
Because I'm like, oh my God. It's so good in the aspect that she draws a hard line and gets out of this abusive relationship. But it was heavy. It was not what we were like in our minds thinking, oh, it's going to be a funny, cute movie.
I definitely went in and I thought this is going to be, something that when it's over, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see one of our kids have a love like that. And it was definitely not the scenario that came about when you go to see the movie It Ends With Us. Good movie.
Yeah, good awareness, and proud of her for getting out. I mean, we actually had a person suggest that we do an episode on how do you get out of a toxic relationship, or why don't people get out of a toxic relationship? And I do like this topic, and I'm looking into it of who I could have come on to our podcast and talk about it, because I'm not an expert in the field of how do you get out, because I've seen a lot of people stay when they shouldn't. And I think for me, I feel like I can tell when people need to get out, because you feel like it's not healthy. You can tell their worth is compromised, and I think for me, it's key. Like, are you being lifted up or torn down? Are you like gaining strength? Are you losing momentum in your life? Are you feeling strong and worthy? Or are you feeling weak and not confident? But again, like, I do think that that's probably worth a topic to kind of dive into more. I'm just still looking for an expert or somebody that can come talk about it. It's hard. I don't feel like people want to talk about it. So,
because some people are still stuck in those situations, and we know we couldn't handle it in our own home, unfortunately, as much as you knew.
Yeah.
You were on top of that. You knew what was happening.
You can't force it. You can't make someone. It's how does the person in the relationship see it, for one, because a lot of times you can't see it, and two, actually take action. And that's the part that I think it's really hard for people to talk about. So
yeah, I don't think we're just blindly going to the movie theater anytime soon.
No.
I mean, we're going to be doing some research before we are like, hey, let me buy a ticket to that and a box of Raisinets. Holy hell.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Speaking of shows, though, people will laugh at this, but we just started This Is Us. So yes, we're years behind.
Listener generated, I will say. My friend Jamie Mack, who was one of my bosses for years at the radio station, incredibly talented program director. He's moved away and he's out of this business, but he listens to our podcast all the time. He's the one that gave us the idea to have an intro years ago. I mean, he's just always got ideas, and he kept messaging me. I think you're going to like This Is Us. I think you need to watch This Is Us. And then during something that happened in one of our podcasts in the last month, he texted me again and was like, I'm telling you, listening to Angie for 3 years, I think I know her personality, that this is a show she would really like. You guys would like it together. He's like, the first episode, the pilot, was one of the best done pilots he'd ever seen. I think so too, after watching it. I mean, it's just incredible. And so now we are wrapping season 1 tonight. It's 18 episodes long. We're wrapping it tonight after this. Part of date night is wrap season 1 of This Is Us. And I talked to other people. They're like, we had to stop watching it because you just cried all the time. I said something to Angie about that. She's like, that's my life.
I mean, I cry all the time anyway. Like, what's so something else in between the This Is Us episodes and driving kids everywhere that I'm throwing around the idea of in 2025 doing some sort of grief workshop. I've started writing that out. I've talked about this before, where like the twins are going to get their license at the end of the year. And it's kind of like, what am I going to focus on, right? I can't sit around and watch Life 360 all the time, make sure that they make it to their destination. because I'm not in control. But I just like, I need to have a plan for my life. That's the way I'm wired. So it's like, okay, they're going to be driving. I cannot just sit and stalk 360.
We could hang out. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes.
The time
we
is
can hang
there.
out and plan out.
Hang out.
We can hang out and plan out a grief workshop.
I do love the idea of a grief workshop. You brought this up to me, and I thought it was brilliant because it's something you're passionate about, and it's a way for you to give back and help.
Yeah, and I think it would be something unique and different, and through the lens of a mom that lost her child, and the things that we ask ourselves or that we want to dive into deeper, and even just be able to connect with other moms. And having that conversation, that support group helps a lot. Simple text when you know they know your pain. So we'll see. Just an idea that I've thrown around in my head, and I've put a little bit to paper just to see what that could look like. The other thing that I think I will be doing to fill my time is in February, Phoenix, the HP's legacy horse, will be ready to start riding with the trainer, not me, but eventually me. And I am super excited about that because in my mind, I'm playing out what it will feel like getting on the horse for the first time. And it's really my second children's book, Are You With Me, actually coming to life. And that, just thinking about that, brings on all the emotions, because it's the one thing that I am super, super afraid of. And the one thing that I know Hallie would be so ecstatic about, with her dream of having a foal and then being able to actually ride her foal, as it grows up. And so I know also in my mind that Liza, my niece, has
Hallie Mini. I would call her Hallie Mini.
Hallie Mini, that has the exact same passion and love for horses, that she will be riding Phoenix one day, fast and furious around the barrels. And so just that next step into Phoenix's journey is exciting for me too. So
I'm excited to ride Phoenix at some point. Carter once said he was going to ride the shit out of that horse. So we'll see if
that's what he said.
See if Carter comes through on that or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. It was funny when we told the kids we were getting a horse to honor Hallie. I had forgotten when Carter was little, he always wanted a horse. Never got one. So he was like, we're getting a horse. I'm going to ride the shit out of that horse. I'm like, okay, we'll see. He's off to college, but
yeah. And then we have this Sunday, when this episode drops, we have the second annual Hallie Phillips Memorial Barrel Race at Reflections Arena in Festus, Missouri. It's a different spot than we had last year, but this is actually an arena that Hallie has ridden in many times. And it's a sport that she absolutely loved. And I love how they've kept this going. And I'm just to go there and just watch the badass ladies ride their horses so fast and furious too around the barrels. It's like an adrenaline rush. And I know Hallie would just love that people are there watching the sport that she absolutely loved and hated, and on some days when it didn't go her way. So
yeah, really going to be cool and excited to be there. If you live in the St. Louis area and you listen and you want to come by and see us today, we would love it. Come by and say hi at Hallie's second race. It'll be fun, and we'd love to meet some of you. Also coming up is her second scholarship dinner, which the cool thing is that one of the fastest scholarships ever funded at Mizzou is Hallie's. Some of you listening did that. People we don't even know did that. And it was really cool to be at last year. A little bit bittersweet this year because it's conflicting with one of your big events.
Yeah, every year I have a women's event that I spearhead, and it's October 10th. And then we just got the invite for the scholarship dinner, and I'm like, dang it, it's the same night. And I can't miss the women's event that I put on. I mean, I've spent months and months planning it, and So I think what I'm going to end up doing is maybe trying to meet up with the two recipients and just grab a coffee with them. And you guys will be there at the dinner, and this time the twins will go. But it's a bummer because it's really well done, and it's a nice dinner, and they show her picture and talk about her. And so not much you can do there.
And then finally coming up, something that's really big and heavy, and at the time that this airs will just be 9 days away. And that will be the upcoming sentencing hearing on October 1st after the trial to see what happens after the guilty verdict.
Yeah, and that has been heavy. So if you're not familiar, which, I wasn't ever before, they basically have a separate hearing after the verdict, and it's where he gets sentenced to whatever the judge feels like he should get. And I mean, it could range from nothing to, I'm assuming, prison time. I don't know. I'm not in control of that, and I have no even opinions about it necessarily because it's completely out of my control. But what the victim's family can do is make a statement, and people can also write letters, submit letters to the judge, but we can also take the stand. And I did a blog post today because it's just top of mind for me, just thinking about how powerful words are, right? We're all taught that words matter, words you can never take back, words that can imprint in your brain and your heart, like all of it. Like, words are powerful. They contain things. And I'm at a point where you think about the victim's impact statement, and it's like, there's just no words. To be fully transparent, I've had it written for a long time, probably 18, 19 months. But as we got closer to the sentencing hearing, understanding more of what the do's and don'ts are, it really needs to be about how it's impacted you. And that is so freaking hard to put down on paper. And everybody's struggling with it. Like, how do you take something that's unimaginable, unfathomable, and describe what it has done to you? And the impact of never having your child in your life again. Like, most people, you can't even imagine it. All you imagine is like, I would never be able to live. Okay, so I'm living. How would you describe it? You just can't. Like, I keep thinking, like, it's not words. It's not words. It's the actions. It's things that have happened, and you can't describe it. It's like, let's just play the honor walk.
Yeah.
Or it's the tears that flow every freaking day. And we'll share it. When we get past this, I will share what I had written first, and then I'll share what I actually end up saying on the stand. But I don't know, it's just this irony in that now you're supposed to like describe in words what this has been like. And there's nothing that can come close to that.
Yeah, it's truly one of those events where there's not words that can actually describe what you're feeling, what our family is feeling, anybody. So yeah, you're supposed to do that. So really a conundrum, and you've worked very hard on it. And so I do think that when it's time after the fact for you to go ahead and be able to share that with people, I think they'll really just be completely immersed in what you've wanted to say. So with all that being said, it's time for us to share what we are grateful for as we wrap today.
Yeah, as I'm thinking through that, sometimes it's hard sometimes to like think about, what am I really grateful for? For one, I think I just did a TikTok on this. I'm grateful for the workout program that I'm a part of, because I do feel like moving my body has saved me on a lot of days where you feel like I'm tired and I just want to crawl in bed and let the emotions take over. And I always feel better after I move my body, especially when I'm in like this fight or flight mode. I also know that there's a lot of people that can't move their body. So I'm grateful that I'm in this community and I can fight forward every day and work out, and that I can move my body. I'm grateful that God is watching over us because we are on the road a lot. I traveled a lot last week. I traveled this week, and the driving back and forth with the kids, and one day soon it's going to be them on the road. And even this morning, driving back from dropping the kids off, there was a bad wreck on the other side of the road where we had just came through. And so I'm just grateful that God's watching over us on the road. And also just grateful for, there's so many good people in the world, so many. And I think, you watch the news. I can't watch the news. Like, you can get this perception that this is like a terrible place, and the world is broken for sure. But there are a lot of great people. My son Chase has a new wrestling coach, and I think he's going to be a really good mentor for him. So I'm just grateful that he's come into his life. And coaches can just have, well, it can be good or bad, right? But they can have such a positive influence on our kids. And I'm not sure in the past Chase has had a ton of amazing ones, but I do feel like this guy is going to have a great influence on him. So those are my 3 gratitudes.
Love it. I'll just start by saying I am grateful that as of today, I am currently wrapping up 38 days without a beer, which is pretty cool for me. I don't think I've done that since I turned 21. I'm in my 40s now. I mean, seriously, I don't think I've gone 38 days without a beer since I turned 21. Just something we did in our family. And my brain is clearer. I don't have all the depression that goes with when you're drinking alcohol. And this is clearly a depressing time in our lives with everything that's going on. It allows me to process things better. When Angie and I aren't on the same page, it allows me to take a deep breath. And I think it helps me to be, I think my kids would tell you, a better dad. And I lost like 20 pounds. So pretty good gig all the way around in that. I'm grateful.
Carter the other day was like, Dad looks different.
Because he's been at college for a few weeks, hasn't seen me. And so you can notice things like that. Yeah. I'm grateful that we had the 4 kids. Lexi was gone Sunday, but the other 4 kids home for a good portion of the weekend, especially Sunday. I got to sit down for dinner with Carter and Chase and Summer and Dane. And that was nice because it just kind of felt like last year when we had all 4 of those kids at home. The last couple of years, I guess, since Lexi's been off at college for 3 years and Hallie was gone before that to college, that, having those 4 kids at home for 3 years was kind of our routine. And so Carter being off to school can be hard at times. So for them to be home Sunday was nice. So I was grateful for that time together as a family. And then finally, I'm grateful that, as dumb as this sounds, grateful that you and I have stumbled on this book through our therapist, because I do think if we follow through with the steps, I think it's going to be really good for us to learn how to communicate better and for us to be a guiding light for other couples to go, hey, here's a solution when you're in it, because all couples are going to go through periods of ups and downs. Like you said, ours brought on by the loss of a child, kind of extreme, right? Hopefully that's not the case for most people listening, but going through this book, I think can be really good. So I'm grateful that she brought it to our attention. And then before we wrap today, I actually do just want to pray for her, because her and her husband are expecting a baby any day now. And so we told her that we would pray for them. And it's one of those things where it's always exciting. It can also be scary when you're having a baby. So hope that goes well for them. So with that, we hope that you guys have an absolutely wonderful week. Try to come up with something that you're grateful for today. Do something nice for somebody. Have a wonderful week, and God bless. Thank you for listening to Blended Blessed and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.